hopefully. But we're going to start off by talking with all three authors. They're going to give you a brief introduction to their book. I'm going to ask them a few questions and then they're going to do a reading for us. And then you will, at the end, also have a chance to actually ask them some questions. Please post your questions in the chat, and we'll read them out. We're not going to highlight anyone on screen just for today. And there's also, as you might have seen on social media, a little bit of competition. You have the chance to win books, and we're going to be so listen carefully to the chat and to the conversation because the questions that I'm going to post we will answer during our conversation. So, Sarah, would you just start off by giving us a very quick introduction to your debut picture book, which is out tomorrow? Yay! So exciting.
Yay. Okay, so yeah, it's called Super Nanny and Captain Yaz, and it's published by Templar Books. Its age range is about 5 to 7, but it'll be fine for about 3 to 8 ages. And yeah, it's publication date tomorrow, so I'm really excited. It's a story about my a grandmother and a granddaughter who speak different languages, but despite speaking different languages, they find a new way to communicate using imagination and a little patience. And there's also a lot of superhero phrases, kapow, zap, kaboom, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really exciting story.
Wonderful. So I believe from reading a couple of interviews with you that it was based somewhat on your own family experiences. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that and how the idea for the book came about, and then how you shaped it into this wonderful picture book?
Okay, so yeah, like I said, it was based on my mum and my little girl. And when she was about 1.5, my mum was telling me, she's speaking to me. And my mum speaks Punjabi, and my first language is English. And we were speaking English predominantly with my little girl. And I was saying, I don't think so. I don't think so. She's speaking to you in Punjabi or your own way. And I didn't believe my mum until one day I actually saw my little girl had realized that this woman here doesn't speak English and I need to adapt the way I speak to her. So she was using gestures and she was saying key words. And so, like in Punjabi, no is knee. And she was saying to my mum, knee, knee, knee. And like for yes, aho, aho. And I remember I was shocked. She was only about 1.5. I couldn't believe that she had figured out at that stage that with this person, I need to do actions about food and stuff, and I need to speak differently. So yeah, when it came to, it was about 2022, and so I'm a teacher, and I decided it was all post-COVID time, and I decided I wanted to give writing a go, and I had researched the famous advice about write what you know. And I thought, oh, I'll just write about my mum and my daughter. And my daughter was obsessed about superheroes at the time. And then, yeah, I wrote the story, and luckily it won Right Mentor's Picture Book Award. And then from there, just things got rolling. And now I'm a published author as of tomorrow. So
That's so
yeah, that's how I've
lovely.
ended up here.
And it's such a universal experience, isn't it? Because I remember my nanny also mainly spoke Hindi. And I remember, although I could kind of understand her really well, I wasn't very fluent. So we also had that language barrier. So my mum's mum didn't speak much English, but my mum's dad did. So we would, as you say, communicate with gestures and,
Yeah,
other forms of language. So I think that's just such an amazing idea for a book. I also really love the illustrations. They're just so
oh yeah.
gorgeous and vibrant and colorful. But I know that, well, as far as I understand, your illustrator's not from a South Asian background. So did you have to give her very much guidance about all the beautiful details of Punjabi, outfits and the mehndi and all of those things that come up in the book?
Yeah, so prior to this, I would have probably thought that I needed like a South Asian illustrator to really depict the setting and really get the vibe of all that culture. But yeah, Maria's Brazilian, and it actually worked perfectly because like I was in another interview just last week, and I was asked a really good question that perhaps it actually worked in a way better because I was providing all the pictures, how I pictured the village life. I was getting pictures from Pakistan of my family, double checking everything. So it was actually. So I did lead all her inspiration, like I was sending all that, and then she just created it. And then so in the interview last week, it was a good question about how perhaps if she was South Asian and it could have gone a whole different route. So the pictures really like are so personal to me because it's exactly what I had pictured in my mind, and she just did a fantastic job in capturing a traditional nanny figure and like the village scene. It was just I just can't believe it how good she did it. So yeah, it actually worked surprisingly. Like I said, prior to this, I probably wouldn't have thought that was a good idea, but it worked brilliantly, and she is just incredible. So shout out to Maria.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting because quite often the publishers sort of prefer there not to be so much kind of interaction between the
Yeah.
author and the illustrator. But in your case, you were able to provide her with very personal images that she just created this beautiful. So maybe that's something publishing should consider more, I guess, with stories that are very rooted in a cultural context that,
Yeah.
more interaction between author and illustrator can create
Well, I
something.
wasn't allowed to speak to her, so as you'll know, that's still the rule. I only spoke to her. I sent her a message once we went live public when once it was all announced, but so it's all still through the publisher, very
You
controlled.
send them the images and they send them on to her,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I was not allowed to speak to her, but not that anybody explicitly said. But I knew the rules and I followed the rules. But it just worked out really well overall. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that she worked on the book, and she's just incredible. Love her.
yeah, and they are such beautiful images and they work absolutely. I mean, again, like I say, I was looking at the picture and I felt like that was my nanny as well. So it was really, really
She
beautiful.
looks like my mum, and like honestly, I did not send a picture of my mum, and I thought, wow, does my mum look really stereotypical? She looks, but like she looks like my aunties. She looks like so many women in the community. So
Move.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, for your family to have that, that's just such a
Yeah,
beautiful. And now
yeah,
I
really
know that
lovely.
your book is the only one that's actually not out till tomorrow. So
Yes.
I know you had loads of exciting stuff going on, events and interviews, and but what aspect of actually having your book out there in the world are you most looking forward to? What is most exciting for you?
Well, I think the most exciting time, like I've got my Waterstones book launch, so that's really I'm looking forward to that. And I think the most exciting thing probably that possibly has maybe even happened. I was at a children's festival in my hometown, and we had hundreds of children coming in, and I was leading workshop sessions, reading the story. And for me, that was a really emotional time because personally, I'm heavily pregnant, and I was a ridiculous superhero. So so that was one thing aside. But secondly, just having the opportunity to read the book to kids. And like I said, because I am a teacher, when I was originally writing the manuscript, putting it together, all I was picturing in my head is how I would read it out to children. So this was the first time last week that I actually got to read it out to classes of kids. And it was just so incredible seeing like we had Latvian children, we had Nigerian children, from different backgrounds, Pakistani, Bengali, Sri Lankan, Indian, and all of them related to obviously the like learning a new language, having family members from different countries, struggling to speak, and then a lot of the South Asian children were all coming and going, super nanny, we know. And I was like, who's nanny? And grandma, they all knew. And it was just so incredible seeing it finally out and having that reaction with the kids. So I thought, phew, that works. Story time has passed. It's got the kids excited, and it's hashtag underrepresented voices. So it was just such an overwhelming, beautiful experience. So yeah, I feel like I've had the buzz now. So I'm still looking forward to the Waterstones launch as well because it'll be another
Oh.
opportunity to read it.
And what when you go back after maternity, what kind of age group do you teach?
Oh, I teach all over, but I'm usually predominantly five, six, year five, six. So
Mhm.
with the older kids, but I've been in education for many years,
Oh,
over
I
12
bet they'll
years.
be
So yeah.
calling you down to KS1, won't they? And they were like, oh,
Yeah, the
come
crazy teacher.
again.
It was just too funny. Like I was heavily pregnant with a superhero outfit on. So yeah, the things you do for
Oh,
kids.
I want to see those pictures. That sounds great.
Please don't. I want them erased.
Well, can you pretend that we're your class now and we're your children? Could you possibly give us a little reading from the book? That would be
Okay.
amazing.
Right, I will automatically go into teacher mode now. So just I'm not purposely being patronizing. I know there's all adults here, but I'm gonna do it. Okay, so
The way
Super
you do
Nanny and
it.
Captain, yes.
Lovely.
Right, also, can I just say, look at these end papers. I mean, it's Maria, she is so good. And also, can I just a shout out to Captain Taz because that's my dad who's locked in, and I did a quick reference to him. So yeah, Captain Taz, everyone in the chat is my dad. Okay, right. Are we on? Yeah. In a large bustling city, there lived a little girl called Yasmin, and in a small village far away, there lived an old lady called Nanny. Yasmin was Nanny's granddaughter, but the two of them had never ever met. One morning, Yasmin woke up to Mummy putting up bunting, Daddy stirring the curries, and a living room full of balloons. What's going on? Yasmin asked. Nanny's flying over to meet you, said Mummy, and she's staying with us for 3 whole months. Yasmin was so excited. She put on her favourite silver kameez, she had her hair plaited, and she even decorated her hands with mehndi. Yasmin couldn't wait to play with Nanny and asked Mummy, which toys does Nanny like? Mummy had a think, well, Nanny used to love making all my dolls. Why don't you play dolls together? Dolls? You mean action figures, sighed Yasmin. But it was a good idea, so Yasmin got her squad ready. A few hours later, there was a knock at the door. With kind eyes, a big smile, and arms wide open. It was Nanny. Once Nanny was settled, Yasmin brought over her superheroes. Captain Taz is the strongest. Pow! His superpower is zap, and he makes things go kaboom. Nanny looked over at Mummy, and the two of them began to speak. That's when Yasmin realized she had a problem. And there you go. Wonder what happens next. You have to buy it tomorrow.
To find out what happens next. Oh, thank you so much. Can we all give a little virtual or real clap to Sarah? Because that was absolutely gorgeous. Thank you. And we'll come back to you, Sarah, with more questions at the end. But we're going to
Okay.
move on to Truly now, if that's okay. Would you mind unmuting yourself, Truly?
Hello, hi. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. So I wanted to start again with asking us if you just give us a quick introduction to this.
Okay,
It's also your debut. Is that
yes, so this was out just a couple of weeks ago. My book is called The Shell Keepers, and it's a middle grade book aimed at kind of ages 7 to 11. It's out through Chicken House Books. Um, and it's a story of a young girl called Corinne who's mixed heritage. And when her grandfather dies, they go to his home at the coast to clear out his flat. And while she's playing on the beach, she stumbles upon an incredible shell with a tiny girl living inside. And this sets off a bit of a mission and an adventure for her. The girl needs her help. And so Corinne has to work with her and her cousin and her sister over the week to help save the beach and help the girl reunite with her family. The girl is called Powery, and she learns what it means to be a shell keeper, a human who works with these tiny people called democonch to protect the environment around us. So, in 3 words, it's kind of about it's a magical family adventure, lots of seaside summery vibes.
wonderful? And yeah, we've got the right weather for it at the
Yeah.
moment. Absolutely. So I'd really love to hear more about how your ideas for the book developed. I love little people books. So I think when I was a kid, I read all of The Borrowers because there isn't just the first one, there are many of them.
Yeah.
And there's another one called Secrets of the Blue Glass, I think, which is a Japanese book, which is also about little people. And you've got these amazing little people with, I mean, they just. Carrie has such an amazing personality. She's the democonch that we meet, and the world that you create is so magical. How did the idea of weaving together a story of these magical little people with the broader themes of the environment, of ecology, of the damage we're doing to the natural world, how did that come to you?
Oh, thank you so much for what you said about them as well. It's really close to my heart, and I think there's a few different strands of this really. So I've always cared about the environment and how we interact with the world around us, and that's become more of a kind of pressing concern in recent years when we see the challenges that we're facing with climate change. But really, this began. I wrote a short story for my nephew when he was young. So I've always been writing different stories, poems, songs. And when my nephew was little, reading to him reminded me what it was like to get really lost in the magic of the story. And I was an avid reader when I was young, and I used to love stories that had a bit of magic. And I love stories with little people and the magic faraway tree and Thumbelina and also an adventure and mystery and quests as well. So it really started with that question of what if children really could see things that were beyond human sight? What if they could find this whole world existing in shells? And when I was little, my summer holidays were I'm a Londoner. I've grown up in Southeast London. But my holidays were to seaside. We used to go to Clacton and get a caravan there. And I had grandparents who lived down at the coast. And my memories of that place is magic. It's full of sunshine and possibility and magic and creatures that are different to my kind of daily life. So having the shell gave the setting of the seaside. The little people gave the magic. It harked on the things that I loved when I was little, but let me explore this world. And then the ecology themes just kind of fell through that naturally, because I think the thing about the shell keepers is that they're not dependent on humans. They've kind of tried to cut ties with us, really. They're very resilient in themselves because they know how important it is to maintain balance in the ecosystems that we rely on. But there are some things they need humans for, and that's where we can work together with them. So yeah, it was looking at those connections in the world around us and the amazing things that we don't get to see in plain sight.
And I also just wanted to ask you a little bit about the language that the Democonch speak, because it's really clever. It's very comprehensible, but it almost sounds like a sort of slightly archaic form of English. How
Yeah,
did that come to you?
that's exactly that. Thank you. When I first kind of started writing the demo book, I knew I wanted to speak differently. And the first versions of it sounded a bit Yodery, a bit kind of odd. And I thought this needs more work. So I wanted to come up with a bit of a pattern. So I decided to make sure that they only use words that are rooted in Old English. So they don't use any Latin rooted words as far as I've tried to do. And that gave me the opportunity to kind of experiment and explore with old words and how we understand them in modern English as well. So kind of everything that I wrote for the Democonch, I would go back over. I found a brilliant website called Old English Translator where I could put in a word and see what kind of vague semblances there were of that word in Old English, and then create new words from that. So some of the words, all of the words that are different to modern English are influenced by Old English, but I might have tweaks them a bit. So I really like things like, instead of clue, which has got a French root, I use hintling because the hint is kind of more of an Old English, and that stem of the ling works as well. So it was effort to craft that, but it was quite a fun way to explore language, and it's lovely to speak to kids about the words that we use as well. And some of those words just feel really lovely, in to say as well.
Yeah, and it's so clever and so charming when you read it, definitely. And I'm sure the kids love kind of trying to work out what the words are as well.
Yeah.
The Shellkeepers actually won the Bath Children's Novel Prize, which is a very prestigious prize in 2022. And how did it feel to win? And what was the pathway? Because quite short, actually. Maybe it's not short to people outside publishing, but between winning the prize and your book coming out, it's not that long. So how did that work out from there?
Oh, it was such a boost to win that prize, and the fact, because the Bath Children's Novel Award as well, the judges are children, so that was the first time really that I knew that children had read the story and connected with it, and it really validated that there's something here that I need to keep working on. So I was really grateful for the kind of opportunity that gave me, and kind of the boost of confidence. And in terms of like the pathway, at that time, I was actually I'd also been lucky enough, I'd got onto the Right Now program, which was a penguin mentoring program. So I've been working on, and I was interested, Sarah, you mentioned Write Mentor. I've been a part of Write Mentor as well. So that was my first real experience of giving my story to somebody and working on it. I had a fantastic mentor, Joan Haig, who was the first time I talked to somebody who brought into my world, and I could talk to her about people living in shells and the Democonch, and you know, so I'd worked on it with her. I've got onto the Penguin Right Now program, and then I submitted to the Children's Novel Award. And in the time from submitting, I then connected with my agent, and then I won the award. And then when the agent was going out on submission, she had that validation to kind of add to the submission package, which was really nice, and you know, helped publishers. And Chicken House picked it up in December 2023, and they have close connections to the Bath Children's Novel Award. And I think, you know, it did help, I think, probably catch their eye that was there. And they've been really brilliant with the book and really got on board with the vision for it and helped shape it.
Wonderful. Oh, that's just such a, again, such a magical story of, but of course, all the hard work that went into it before is, you know, something that only we know as writers before you get to the fairy tale end. And you've had lots going on, just like Sarah. I've seen you've been doing lots of events. And what has been the most exciting part for you so far of having your debut out in the world?
Oh, it's been such a whirlwind over the last few weeks. And such a dream, really, to suddenly be at this space of being able to own it and say, yeah, I'm a published author, I'm a children's author now. This is what I do, you know, and have it as a part of your identity. I think some of the most magical things have been I'm starting to get through pictures of children reading the book, and that's just mind blowing because you know when I wrote this as well, I was thinking of how I used to love to get lost in a story when I was that age, and it just feels like such a gift that now children are going to be buying into my story and seeing that world that I've imagined. So yeah, it's my heart is very full this month of all the lovely things that are happening with the book.
Oh, that's wonderful. And would you be able to give us a little
Mhm.
taste of the magical world of your book? Would you be able to give us a short reading?
Sure, yeah. So I'm going to just read you a couple of pages, and this is taken from the section of the book when Corin, who is our protagonist, so she's I should half Sri Lankan and half Scottish. I didn't want to make her half Sri Lankan, half English. That was too close to me. So I took one step out and made her half Scottish. When she first finds Cowrie, the little girl in the Challenger, they're down at the coast, and her family, they've been having a picnic on the beach, and she's kind of wandered off to look for something to help the sandcastle. She stared at the sand. The colour began to shimmer and shift. All of the shades of yellow, grey, and mottled brown seemed more vibrant, the sunlight brighter. She blinked and looked up to see what had changed. But the sky was the same, with little puffs of cotton wool cloud drifting by. She jiggled her finger in her ear, swallowing firmly. Were her ears blocked, or had the sound changed as well? The voices nearby were quiet and muffled. Corinne rubbed her ears, confused. The curved shape in the sand caught her eye, and she walked compulsively to it. Her eyes widened as she got closer. It was a beautiful, perfectly formed, conch-like shell glistening in the sun. This was no normal shell. It was much larger, almost exactly the size of her whole hand, just like the treasure she'd found by the Thames. It was yellow, orange, and red, ingrained with deep brown stripes. Its satisfying smooth curve tapered to a delicate spiral at the nose. Perfect. She reached to pick it up, and her hand froze midair. What was that? Was it a mouse? Her thoughts raced to process what she had seen. The same quick flash of movement she'd seen at tube stations darting beneath the rails. But there weren't mice on beaches, were there? She mentally ran through her list of beach animals: crabs, lugworms, sandhoppers, sanderlings. Then she saw it again, a flash of movement behind the shell. Corinne knelt down and lowered her chin to the sand so that it was level with the shell. A very small face appeared from behind it, a very small human face. Corinne breathed in sharply and blinked. The face gasped too and disappeared. No, come back, Corinne called under her breath, not expecting the creature to respond. She laid her forehead on her hands. What on earth have I just seen? She lifted her head again, and there, in front of her, was a tiny, human-looking girl, smaller than the shell, staring right back at her. Hoi, the girl said cautiously. Speak ye?
Oh, Oh, how exciting. And I love that we got a little glimpse of the language that we were talking about earlier. And that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Julie. And just to say to everyone here, we've posted the buying links in the chat. But the other thing is, if you do read and enjoy any of these books, please, please, please take a moment to post a rating or a review on the Waterston site, on Amazon, on Goodreads, on Storygraph, on anywhere that you are. If you have access to trade and professional magazines, that works too. It only takes a few minutes, and it really makes a big difference to all of us authors, but particularly to debut authors. So please do that. So now we're going to go on to Sita Brahmachari. And I've just realized I forgot to read out everybody's bios, which are actually, right here on my screen. But I don't think Sita needs any introduction, really. She is, a Waterston's Children's Book Prize winner with her first book, Artichoke Hearts. And I tried to count, and I may have got this wrong, Sita. Is this your 16th book for young readers, or have I got this wrong? We're not counting all the foreign editions and that sort of thing now. Just
Oh, children often ask, and I feel the burden on my shoulders, so I don't count. I try not to count.
well, I think I think it's about 16, plus or minus one or two, maybe. So
yeah, no, every book is a new. Every book is like a new challenge, so it kind of feels like it's the first one you're trying to get right. But listening to you, I just want to say congratulations to you both. It's so exciting when a new book comes out, and especially when your first book comes out. And I do remember that feeling very much. And yeah, there's always that excitement whenever you manage to get this thing that's been in your brain into a book, and other people can read it. So many congratulations. That your books sound beautiful.
it's a huge achievement, and it's even more of a huge achievement to keep doing it for 16 books and come up with absolute brilliance every time. So, would you mind, Sita, giving us, just like the others, a quick introduction to Phoenix Brothers?
Well, so this is Phoenix Brothers, and it's published by Oxford University Press. It came out last week. It's part of a series called the Super Roller Coaster series, and this has been created. It's got wonderful authors like Sally Gardner, Patrice Lawrence, Anthony McGowan. I'm really proud to be part of this group of authors. And it's been published for many children, really, that might find it kind of difficult to read, say some of my more sort of epic sized books. Or they may be coming to English as a second or third language. Like the characters in my story, who are learning English for the first time. And it just allows them to read a teen novel. This is for 11 to 14-year-olds, which is not patronizing, which is absolutely a story for that age range, and to immerse themselves in it. And I'm really pleased to have this, because I see more and more how children are struggling to read, and the National Literacy Trust have just published that report about decline in reading for pleasure. So I'm really, really pleased to have this book published now.
Yeah, and it is, such, I mean, it really could be a book for absolutely any age. As you say, it's just a masterclass in wonderful writing, and something that so many teenagers would really, really enjoy reading, whatever their reading ability and level. So maybe we could just, because I've had the advantage of hearing you speak about the book, a little while ago at a wonderful Goldsmiths event where Michael Rosen was interviewing you. So I feel like I'm coming a poor second to him now. But I know that there's been a bit of a journey with this book. You spoke to me about it a while ago, while it was still sort of happening. And it started off as a short story in the anthology I'll Be Home for Christmas. And it was called Amir and George, that short story. And that short story then got taken up by the English Media Centre, and they started to use it as a sort of key teaching text. And then you've written this, I suppose, could I call it a prequel? Would that?
Yeah, I think it is a prequel. I think it is a
This
prequel.
profoundly sort of moving story. So that's really interesting, because that was how many years ago now, the original story? How did you come to think, this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to write the prequel to this story?
So, listening to Truly and Sarah speak, stories emerge over time, and then they can start as a little patchwork piece of a poem, and then they can grow. And this story, published in 2016, Amir and George, I literally had a what if idea, that you were talking about, like, what if a recently arrived refugee child really wanted to speak to the theme of the George Orwell public speaking competition, which actually is something that exists. And one year it actually was, if liberty means anything at all, it is the right to tell people what they do not want to hear, which, if you've been outside the BBC in London, you'll see that's inscribed on the wall with a statue of George Orwell. And that's really, I suppose, a shout out to journalists and anyone who writes to try to seek out the truth. And even if the truth is hard to tell, to try and tell it. And I just had this idea, what if a recently arrived refugee child really wanted to tell the truth of their journey and it was difficult for other people to hear it? And what if George Orwell, who was always there with his notebook in hand, what if George Orwell turned up to hear this child, Amir, speak? And that's why it was called Amir and George. It was a meeting between the spirit of George Orwell and a recently arrived refugee child from Iraq called Amir. And then what happened with the story is it was actually, I'll show you a few books really. It was actually published in an anthology by Lucy Popescu called A Country to Call Home, which is a wonderful anthology where many, many children and young adult authors like David Almond and Ian Kofer, Peter Kalu, Bali Rai, SF Said, Patrice Lawrence, lots of children's authors wrote a story which was really kind of in homage to refugee children, to give them a kind of sense of agency and power and not always be the person that's talked about. So it was published in that. And then, as you say, the English and Media Centre did a resource around it. But the main thing that made me want to come back to it was I went to an international school and the children read it as a part of a short story competition. And they chose it as their favourite short story, which I was really honoured about. But they also said, but how did Amir actually get to the point where he could stand up and give his speech? And he gives his speech at Eton, so which is somewhere which is really kind of that he calls it like a Harry Potter castle in one version of the story. It's not somewhere that he knows. He's driving out of London, and even being outside of a city is not something that he knows. And how, so they asked me, well, how did he find the confidence to do that? And then I thought, really, that would be an empowering story to tell about, the journey of a child arriving on after a very traumatic journey, and then seeing them in school, and then seeing how that child grows in confidence to speak their own truth. So that's how it came about, especially it's Refugee Week this week, and it's the theme is community as superpower. We're all kind of really writing to try to kind of give children a sense of agency and power and belonging, and that all of our identities can belong here in this country, and sometimes against a narrative which doesn't help us or our children to do that. So I thought, right, this is an opportunity. And actually, when Oxford University Press invited me to do it, they asked me what I wanted to write. And my first instinct was maybe I should write the journey on from when he does his speech. And then I thought, no, I've got to write the journey before. And then, as what happens with stories, it grew. And it wasn't just the journey of Amir, but it was actually the journey of Amir and Mo, the friend that he travels with from Iraq. And actually, George Orwell becomes much more of a kind of spirit at the end of the story, and not so central to this story.
Oh, I absolutely love the way you've done that. And yes, as you say, it's amazing how a little seed can then just grow and flourish into what you've made. And I'm so pleased you mentioned Mo as well, who, like Amir, is also a refugee from Iraq, but really very different as a character. And both of these boys have been through very difficult circumstances. But Mo is also just a bit of a live wire. And in the kind of dynamics between the two of them and between their interactions with school, you managed to inject so much warmth and humor into the story. And I just wondered, given there's so much kind of awful sort of anti-immigration rhetoric in parts of the press and the world. Do you think humor is important in challenging and sort of, bringing down barriers, perhaps challenging these perceptions that some people have?
Yeah, I think humor and a sense of joy. I mean, for many years, I've worked with refugee communities. I brought a little picture that was painted at the refugee centre in Islington last week by
Lovely.
an adult. And it was about her trees of home and remembering the fruit trees of home. And in the story, the lemon tree, the lemon that Amir brings with him, which is almost the only thing that's alive in the rubble of Baghdad, where he was once his home. So this artist was talking about the trees of home, and as she was painting, she started at the table, feeling, shoulders hunched, feeling very stressed. And as she was painting, she started to smile and to laugh and to enjoy the storytelling of the trees of home. And so I think that that's something that I have seen, that one of the survival strategies that people employ, including, my dad wasn't a refugee, but a migrant to this country in the 1950s. Humor was always something that he almost had as a superpower. And I think we probably have this in our communities. And sometimes, as a child, when you saw things were difficult in the world, he would bring humor as a way of saying we can get through this together. And also, it is a survival instinct for people to look for light and look for joy. And I tend to work through symbols in my story. So I bought the sunflower here, which is an image that the seeds of the sunflower are amazing. And Mo is really tall and he's a runner. And he's sort of like a sunflower. He keeps growing. And at some point, he says, I think I'll always be reaching for the light. And that's something that I see all the time with the people that I work with and with ourselves as well. And when we have that flicker where we think that hope, sort of slightly reduces in us, and then children always surprise us and bring us back. And I was just listening to Sarah and Truly in their storytelling. And I was thinking one of the amazing things is that we, as adults writing for children, we kind of hold this torch for them when we write for children. We're not children writing for children, we're adults writing for children. We're holding this torchlight for them. So I think humour is really a big part of that torchlight. And Mo is quite funny, and he's also quite naughty at school. I sort of fall in love. I'm sure you're the same. I fall in love with my characters when I write them, and I think they're real. I think they're about to come through my door. But and some of these young people have actually, in some incarnations, walked through my door. Either people that I've mentored or people that I've met on the way. And Mo is, he's not going to be easy for Mr. Shaw, who's a kind of teacher in the story, to teach. But he's got a juddering leg. He sort of brings his cratered home in his body with him. He brings his trauma with him in his body. But with empathy and care, people can see the potential in Mo. And Amir, who actually writes the story and the speech, he says, and it's a sort of repetition from Artichoke Hearts with Jide Jackson, when Mira Levinson says, he's the cleverest person I know. He is the cleverest. If only the world could see, he is the cleverest, the brightest person that I know.
Yeah.
He's got a lovely. And it's about, how we see children, how we get beyond kind of what a child might show us because of the difficult journey they've had, and how we get to the heart of who they are. That's really what the story's about.
Yeah, and you do that so beautifully. And of course, with the Orwell connection, language and the relationship that language has to power are so central to the story of Phoenix Brothers, because Amir and Mo, although they're not actually brothers, bond through their shared experiences and call themselves Phoenix Brothers. But I'm astonished by how you managed to take these very complex, traumatic journeys and experiences that these two boys have had and turn it into such beautifully nuanced and a powerful story where you leave the gaps and the silences and the imagery and the symbolism to do some of the talking, almost like poetry. I mean, it is like poetry, your book. What's your process? Do you start off with a lot more and pare it down, or are you a writer who just naturally writes in that sort of poetic way?
Well, it's really interesting because the Super Roller Coaster series might also be very good for children who have dyslexia, or maybe haven't found a sort of reading fluency. And I was never diagnosed with anything like that when I was a child, but I was really late to learn to read myself. And probably, when I've written books for Barrington Stoke, And actually also for this book, they go through a kind of edit where, anything that's going to be really difficult for, for readers that might struggle, they would edit those moments to make them kind of easier and more fluent. But I naturally write like that. And I'm wondering whether if I had a diagnosis now, whether I would, have a dyslexia diagnosis, because it's just how I write. I want to, I visualize a lot when I write. I see the pictures. I see it in scenes. I used to work in theatre and I see my storytelling in scenes. So I see the characters moving through space and time, through their school life, through the refugee camps that they've been to, on the journey from the school. I literally see it first cinematically, and then I kind of make that mark on the page. So
Mm.
it's about sort of getting that picture as clear as I can,
Yeah,
as
and of course, your
precisely as I
dialogue
can.
is so powerful. And I'm sure that must have something to do with your theatre training because, you really have that thing that we sometimes have to work at, I think, as prose writers, of where what they say conveys what is unsaid. But you put that in your dialogue and you do that. So it's just a masterclass, this book, in how to do that. It's wonderful. But
Mm.
it's amazing that it comes to you so naturally. I would have thought that actually perhaps you're right about the way that you write, but the simplicity and the ability to think in that way, I think is perhaps also because you do write poetry too. And poetry,
Yeah.
of course, is about nuance and spaces, and the white space is as important as the words that are actually there. So yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Would you mind sharing
Yeah.
some
Can I
of?
just say one thing? I just want to correct you if you not correct if I give the impression that it's easy. It is not easy. And also I'm not quick. And anyone that's sort of helped me to write, any editors, agents will know that I don't actually write quickly and I don't it takes me a while to get from the outside of a character to the inside of a character. So there's loads of things that little poems, patchwork pieces that aren't included in my stories too.
To help
So
build the character. That's wonderful.
yeah, I think that's it. So I was trying to work out what to read, and I think I'm going to read a moment which is set in the school where you'll meet quite a lot of the characters in the story, and it's the moment that Amir has to record his speech with his teacher, Mr. Shaw, and his friends for the George Orwell public speaking competition. So it's called recording. We need to do a recording of your speech to send off to the judges, says Mr. Shaw in our next coaching session. We'll concentrate on some voice techniques today. It's a bit embarrassing how he gets me singing some of my lines and repeating sounds to help me pronounce my words better. Practice in the bath. He makes me laugh, but we do not have a bath. Mr. Shaw makes me imagine I'm speaking to something or someone right at the back of the room. George Orwell, I ask, and Mr. Shaw laughs. I was thinking something more like a clock. I write all Mr. Shaw's techniques down in my notebook. Focus on something right at the back of the room. Breathe deep before you start. Plant your feet like the roots of a tree. Don't sway. Slow down. Your audience is hearing what you have to say for the first time. Let them hear every word. Memorize your speech by writing it out over and over. Imagine headlines for your speech in your mind so you don't get lost. Engage your core muscles and lift your chest to release your voice. Learn it off by heart so that it becomes like a second skin. Ah, Amir. Mrs. Mater appears in the classroom just before we begin the recording in the drama studio. I just popped in to wish you luck. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes. Her smile is real. I do think Mrs. Meta believes in me a bit more now. But I think she's made Mr. Shaw nervous because he keeps repeating the same things over and over. Remember the words that you wrote with all your heart, Amir. Imagine the words like a river flowing. I tried to zone out from him. What Mr. Shaw does not know is that having Mo, Mirza, and Kabir's blessing to speak has given me more confidence than anything. I'm back in the drama studio where Mr. Shaw has set up a camera ready to record my speech. When I get on stage, I speak to Mo and Neela, who have been allowed to watch on the strict understanding that they, Mo, keep quiet. It doesn't even feel like giving a speech. Somehow I manage to navigate to a place in my mind when the lemon tree in my garden back home was still rooted firm and deep like my family. Imagine the words like a river flowing. As I speak, I am the river Tigris that flows through Baghdad. I feel its force. Nothing can stop me. With passion in my heart, I speak my truth with the confidence I had before war came to our door. It came so fast. Apparently, that's it now. The recording of my speech gets sent off and submitted with my manuscript, as Mr. Shaw calls my speech. This all goes to the George Orwell Committee, and they decide who gets to go to the finals. Mr. Shaw plays the recording back, and Neela and Mo lean in and watch it with me. It's poetry, how you speak it, in it, Mo says. In it, Mr. Shaw echoes, and we all fall about laughing. I don't care if it doesn't get picked for the finals now. I listen to Mo chat about his next race, and Neela talk about her field trip for geography, and now I realise how easy we are with each other. Just ordinary school friends, spending time together.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh,
Thank
that's just been so wonderful. And you will actually cry a river of tears when you read this book, but but it is wonderful, heartwarming, and affirming as well. While I come back to Sarah, first of all, to ask, what are you working on next, Sarah? Would you mind sharing that with us? Probably the baby, I'm.
Yes, am I on? Right, yeah. As soon as my book launch is done, I'm going on maternity leave. So, but yeah, I am actually. I'm working on two picture books at the moment. One about Eid and one about just like seeing the humanity in each other. And I'm also working on a middle grade. So, like I was mentioning before, that I'm actually a teacher of. I've predominantly taught year five, six. So I wanted to do like a funny Wimpy Kid style book about a South Asian girl. So yeah, I'm working on that and I need to finish it. So I'm so glad to see you said that it takes long because sometimes I am falling asleep at my own writing. I get all these I get I get like a nap feeling. I'm typing and I'm like, oh God, my writing is putting me to bed. So I feel so great that the amazing Cedar has made me feel like I'm not a failure. And like mine's a funny book as well. So I don't know why it's putting me to sleep. If it does, when it does hopefully come out, do not tell anyone I said my writing puts me to sleep.
Oh,
So
no,
all myself.
that's not you, that's the baby. Telling you that you need to rest. So yeah. Um, things will happen in their own time, but that sounds really exciting. And I'm sure, from having a look at Super Nanny and Captain Yaz, that your middle grade is going to be amazing too. So,
Fingers crossed.
so
If
that's
I
great.
finish it.
I bet it will be. So, truly, I'd like to ask you if you can share anything at all with us about what you might be working on next.
Well, I am working on a sequel to The Shellkeepers. So I'm kind of still quite early stages. I've got to get my outline over to Chicken House, and then this year I'll be focusing on kind of getting that first draft done and getting this ready. But I'm really excited to be exploring that world further and seeing where that goes. And then trying to just keep writing practice in and working on some poems that I'm doing and see what comes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I'm really excited to read the sequel. Maybe it'll go on and on like The Borrowers, which have got about, I can't remember now, 4 or 5 books, I think. So that's fabulous. So everybody out there, if you'd like to type your questions into the chat while we're talking, now is the time to do it because we'd really like to share them. And don't be shy. You can you can ask about anything at all, writing process, publication paths, whatever you need to know. Our fabulous authors are here to share their journeys with you. So, if I may ask Sita now what she's working on, even if you can give us a little hint, if you can't tell us very much detail, it would be lovely to know.
Yeah, so I have never written a picture book, and it's always been my dream to write a picture book. So um, I think next year, it may be early 2027, I'm going to have my first picture book out, working with Jane Ray, and it's a story that's in verse, and it's a sort of contemporary creation story. And it's amazing how writing a picture book takes as long as writing these big novels. I've really been working on this for about 5 years. And it was interesting that talking, Sarah, about the relationship between the illustrator and not meeting, because Janeway and I work at the Islington Refugee Centre together and have done for 12 years now. Um, and so we really know each other as friends. And I didn't realize we've published a few stories together. And I didn't realize at first how amazing that was to actually be able to get on the bus and talk to, show Jane some of my writing and her to come back with a response in image. So this is a very, very special book for me. It contains characters that you might have interesting to talk about your family in seeing your family and your nanny and ma in the stories. But when Jane showed me the first pictures, I was like in bits because there are fictional characters that I've written in other books that are in this book, and it's a kind of patchworking together of those global children in the stories, and it's got a really strong charge to bring unity, and to make those all of our children, know that they are not strangers and that they belong. And I'm working on a bigger novel, a YA novel as well. And yeah, I'm sort of dreaming that up at the moment.
I wanted to ask a little bit about coming on from Sarah's comment about how we don't have many Wimpy Kid style illustrated books with South Asian characters. I remember at the last SAILFest, we were talking about where the gaps were, in the kind of marketplace for diverse authors. And I remember a few years ago, we've got a fantasy book here, we've got a contemporary YA story, we've got an amazing, family picture book. We would not have had that range of different stories with South Asian characters. It was fairly limited in terms of what authors of colour were able to write about. And this is even when I started writing, which is back in sort of 2010, 11. I think just when Artichoke Hearts came out. Isn't that right, Sita? Because I remember reading Artichoke Hearts and that giving me hope because I was thinking, oh, here's, a wonderful contemporary story just with a character who happens to be of diverse heritage. And I've never seen that before. So in terms of, Sarah, coming on from Sarah saying that she sees a gap in the market for more Wimpy Kid style stories, is there anything that perhaps I could start with you, Truly, that you think, oh, there isn't enough of this out there with not necessarily of South Asian origin, but any kind of underrepresented group that you would like to see more of in the marketplace, or any kinds of stories with those characters?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I feel like I need my also reading breadth to expand and get a little more time to read all of the brilliant stuff that's out there at the moment. I think some of the things that just in the books that I've kind of come across over the last few years that it would be good to see more of are perhaps uh, characters with disabilities in the lead and taking power and like having agency, and again that just being part of their life. It's not like a big fact or feature, it's just their life. So I think there's a bit of a gap there. And I think, what was the other thing I was just thinking? I mean, so when I wrote uh, Shell Keepers, I was quite intentional about putting a girl of mixed heritage as the protagonist because that just wasn't around when I was younger. And it's so brilliant to look at shelves now and see what my nephews and nieces are reading. There's so many more options. I don't think it's necessarily still got as much visibility as in terms of the choice that's presented to children, but there is stuff out there if it can get to them. But maybe there are some areas as well of like I know there's a lot of talk at the moment about graphic novels as well. I love comics and graphic novels. I think there's space for more diverse characters in the lead in graphic novels and looking at how that can engage children and bring them into a reading space too.
That's wonderful. Yes, we did mention graphic novels, didn't we, throughout the last Selfest, and also the fact that sci-fi, there wasn't much sci-fi, and there weren't as many boy characters as lead characters of in books with characters of diverse heritage. So yeah, did you have any thoughts, Sita, from your given you can give us the long view of, because obviously things have changed since Artichoke Hearts came out into the world, haven't they? Quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, my work before was in theatre, and you know, I was quite shocked when I wrote Archie Hearts, and that was something that people really commented on, because it just felt to me like, well, this is the world that we live in. So why would you be a children's author and not write into the world that we live in and the people who we are? And so it was a surprise to me, actually. But it is fantastic. It's fantastic to see, obviously, the progress. There needs to be a lot more progress, and there needs to be a lot more broad representation, and different kinds of stories in different genres. I've been lucky enough to write in many different genres, which I've loved as a writer. And we need to hold on to that freedom. Nobody should be kind of feel like, oh, well, we must write real world stories because, or issue-based stories, or, that, if you want to write, and imagine a different kind of future, then that's what we should be able to write. We should have freedom to write the stories we want to. I've been doing a big project in the countryside in around Yeovil, about with refugee communities and children with autism and primary school children, about how they connect to the landscape, the rural landscapes around them. And when I wrote Kite Spirit many years ago, it was really going back to my Lake District at home and that kind of sense of belonging in the countryside. So I think that that's an area that I really like to see. We do
Nature
we
and
do care for our environments. We
mm,
do care. We are people that care for our environments. We need that for our children. So environmental sort of focused storytelling, I think, is
mm.
a is an area that could be explored more.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And also, truly comment about disability made me think about, well, have we seen enough intersectional representation? Because of course, children of color do have disabilities as well. And teenagers of color struggle with gender and, sexuality and things just the way that, white characters do. But we rarely see those overlaps as characters in books. So that's really, really interesting. Okay, the questions are pouring in now. So I will, although I would love to hear you all talk more about this, we'll have to park that and we'll go to our questions. So to start with, fantastic. We have a question from Captain Taz himself, which is, let's start with you, Sarah, which is, do you get writer's block? And can you talk a little bit about that and perhaps for our audience, maybe some strategies to overcome it? Sarah, would you mind starting?
Okay, I I don't think I'm very good at answering this because, like I said, I'm falling asleep when I'm writing, and I've listened to quite a few interviews online from different authors and who talk. Some say that writer's block is like a made up thing, and it's just you can't be bothered to write, and some seem to think it's a real thing. So I'm still trying to navigate what it is, but I do think I'm a bit of a procrastinator, and like. I really struggle to sit down at a laptop for a long period and just write. So anyone who's written anything more than word count, like from a picture book, I'm like, you are incredible because that really tired me out. And I'm trying to just write 20,000 words on a middle grade, and I'm so tired. So I don't actually have any strategies, Daddy, for asking that. But just
Yeah,
keep
just keep
trying.
going.
I think the pros, like Seeta needs to probably, and yourself, Geeta, you guys know it better than me. I'm still trying to find my groove.
Well, let's hear from Truly next, and then we'll come to the master afterwards, which is, yeah, tell us, Truly. What have you ever experienced writer's
I
block? And
think I've had a real luxury with this book because it's been a passion that I've just been working on in my own time. I've had time to do it and I've taken time. I'll find out more when I have to get this next book done in a shorter period of time and there's more pressure on that. But there are definitely times when I don't see my story clearly, and I don't necessarily know the way through it, or and I find two things that really help is giving it space, just leaving it for a while, almost forgetting about it a bit and coming back. And it's incredible how freshly you see the story when you give it a few weeks and you come back to it, and it just opens up like doors that you didn't know were there. The other thing is going for a walk. Like I think going for a walk in my park around the trees, just something about that. I think the trees just set off some synapses there, like to get ideas out and to kind of help figure things out is really helpful. Yeah.
That's really, really good advice. That's amazing, actually. And Sita, do you have any tips you can share for us?
I mean, I don't I don't want to make when you say master storyteller. I mean, it's like it's so difficult to write, and sometimes I mean, I think listening to you talking about sometimes the first book you've got a lot of time, and then sometimes the deadlines come in, and then I have doubt. I have a lot of doubt actually as a writer, and I know that sounds odd, but in a way, you write something and then you kind of, as you say, truly, you go for a walk, you come back, you look at it, you thought it was kind of formed, and then you go, oh no, no, that character's not there. So I have quite a lot of doubt as a writer. But I have this method that I call the patchwork storytelling method, which means that I write a tiny little patchwork piece every day. And that could be just like in Phoenix Brothers, they call it a necklace of meaning, which is just like a little poem, a little thread of words. I've just done that since I was a child. And then I stick it into my notebook like little stamps. I know it's a bit quirky, but then I look at them and I think, oh yes, when I get a moment in a story where I really want to sort of access the internal world of a character, I'll go to my little patchwork quilt of storytelling. I go, oh yeah, that thread's perfect. So I'm always kind of collecting and looking, and it is like collecting shells, collecting holy stones. I always think writing is a bit like collecting, and you collect and collect and collect, and then suddenly you get a kind of flow. You've collected enough for a flow to come out, and sometimes you leave a lot of the stuff behind and the research that you've done carefully, and just you let the story flow out. So that's my tip really is just to keep collecting and don't have too long from when you write, because in that space where you don't write lies doubt and fear.
Oh, absolutely. That is such a wonderful tip. Yes. And it takes the pressure off. If you think, well, all I've got to do is just, write one scene or just write about how one character feels about another, then it really takes the pressure off of thinking, oh, I've got to produce X many words today. So that's a fabulous tip. And Sita does teach creative writing courses occasionally when she's less busy. So do keep an eye out for them because she's a wonderful teacher. We have another question for Sita here, actually. Sita, as someone with a child about to start secondary school, I was curious about your inspiration for the character Layla in Tender Earth. Oh, such a great book. Would you mind answering that, Sita, for us?
So Tender Earth is the third story in what I didn't know was going to be a trilogy. But when I published Artichoke Hearts and Jasmine Skies, Macmillan went, "Well, you can't leave the story there. It's in the air. We don't know what happens to Mira. We don't know what's." And I was like, "I just haven't got the story. I just haven't got a third story. You can't make, I've been lucky enough to be able to say that I've never written a story that I just tried to write and because someone else wanted it. Anyway, so when my daughter went to secondary school, I thought, oh, the baby in Artichoke Hearts has now gone to secondary school. So Mira and Krish and Jide Jackson are like maybe off to college or in a workplace or doing something else. I thought, oh, I always wanted to write a kind of Little Women or Little Family type saga where you see how the schooling of a child changes or the identity of a child changes as the world changes. And that was my opportunity. But I was very slow to have the idea. So some people don't know that it's Artichoke Hearts, Jasmine Skies, and Tender Earth. And then in Tender Earth, you glimpse Mira and Jide Jackson. Oh, I mean, that was very poignant because I pictured him going off to be a trainee doctor in Rwanda, and we all know the narrative that happened around Rwanda. So you sort of you dream forward for your characters, and having my own children who are now adults, 29, 27, and 21. Um, children grow up and they impact on the world, and I think that all your characters that you're talking about, I imagine them as real people in the world making things a better place. So Lila is a firebrand and she's a protester. And I think some of our children feel like that too now.
That's amazing. Such a lovely answer. I'm being told off because we're over time, but I just want to share Tanya's question for us all to think about because it's such a great one. What do you think about the notion of other people writing South Asian, disabled, or other underrepresented characters without having those personal experiences? Well, I think as all of our writers have said, I think it's about doing the work. And of course, Sita is not Iraqi, but you've done the work. You've been in the refugee center week in, week out for years and years and years. And that I think we have to have the respect for the story that we're telling. But I feel, and I'm sure all our protagonists and all our authors feel similarly, that, if you've done the work and you've earned the right to tell that story, no one is going to point a finger. I think it's when people don't seem to have done the work and there's lazy stereotyping or there's inaccurate information that people get upset.
Few things quickly to let you all know. I have dropped a link for our South Asian Heritage Month book list that we already have. Go check it. If you don't have a book in it, email us and we will add it into that. Usually I'm the only person keeping track of that list, and it takes a few months when I have an evening free to update it, but we'll update it. The second thing is we will have a South Asian Heritage Month networking event. Which we will do on Zoom as well, so as many people can join in. So be on the lookout for that. And the festival is definitely happening in September. So you will hear more about the festival, when, where, what, all of that in due course. But as long as, and do tell everybody who is within your circle, librarians, teachers, everybody's invited to the festival this time in person. And the reason will be revealed soon. So we have more space this time. So we will be able to accommodate lots more folks as well. So do register on our website through the link, and then you will get all the updates automatically.
I just want to finish up by saying a huge thank you to Sarah, to Truly, and to Sita for joining us today. As I say, all of you are our SAILFest. We are our community, and we started this because we know there is just incredible talent out there, and we want to showcase this talent not only to our community, although that's important, but to the world. So thank you so much for allowing us to share your beautiful books with the world out there. And this has been recorded, so we'll let you know when the YouTube link is up, and then hopefully you can share it with everyone. And that goes to everyone in the chat too. Please do share it with your colleagues, with school mums and dads, with everyone you know, with grandparents too, because I know from when my own books come out, a lot of people will say, oh, we had no idea that there were books like this that existed, because it's a fairly new thing. So please do join us, share with us, and thank you so much to our wonderful authors. I know it's a difficult, stressful time when a book comes out. It's tiring, particularly for Sarah, who's about to go on maternity leave. So thank you for honouring us with your presence, and I have so enjoyed reading your beautiful books. It's been an amazing week for me. I've read all of them now. So thank you very much, and have a great evening, everyone. That's all I wanted to say.